Thank you very much. May I skip perhaps the nice words which has to be addressed to your institute, because this was repeated on several occasions, to leave more time to substantive issues. I will simply join the other speakers that you have done an excellent job, and we appreciate very much your efforts. The subject that I'm going to touch upon will be slightly different in scope, because the title is of the conference is Understanding Afghanistan and Central Asia, but nobody spoke about Central Asia as a separate title. So in the second part of my address, I will also touch upon in few words what is Central Asia and how it differs from Afghanistan. The interest of the international community and of the West in more specific terms are different for Afghanistan and Central Asia, because Afghanistan is important for the reasons that it harbors terrorism, whereas Central Asia does not, at least at present, harbor terrorism. It is important because of the hydrocarbon reserves, and we have to differentiate for this reason. So we start with Afghanistan. I don't know how to do it. Yes. I will first talk of the geography, history, and the present-day Afghanistan, then move to Central Asia. Geography of Afghanistan was described by several previous speakers. The geostrategical location of Afghanistan could be seen in this map. Actually, it is very close to the, it could be considered part of the Central Asia, but Central Asia is, according to several definitions, of course, it differs, but Central Asia is Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Afghanistan is a key to Central Asia, key to a subcontinent, and also a transition to the Middle East. For this reason, it constitutes a very important strategic position, and this is the reason why it attracted the attention and the interest of several, what shall I call, power focus in the world, beginning with Alexander the Great, and then followed by Mongols and the British and Russians, and now Americans are trying their luck through ISAF. This is the country, but the detail were given by speakers who are more familiar with the geography of Afghanistan than me. On the history, the history was, of course, tumultuous, but this history made Afghanistan what it is today. That's to say, the tribal structure was destroyed by several outside intervention, which was the good side of Afghanistan was destroyed, and the bad side of it has survived. And now we have to perhaps find a way, as Mr. Sartaç Aziz said, to regain the good old links and the role of tribal structure, and also the role that the British administration wanted to give, or how they ruled the subcontinent and perhaps wanted to establish in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, they couldn't do it, they couldn't extend, but this has to be looked as a good example. When we come to present-day Afghanistan, there are internal difficulties exactly stemming from the collapse of the traditional links, and internal difficulties stemming from the destruction of the infrastructure and also state mechanisms. Economic difficulties are also very visible. Because of the war, the economic activities were almost on hold, and drug trafficking and that type of things, which doesn't add much to the economy, became prominent. Social problems created by the conflict is more important. These are problems, a decay and perhaps a lowering of the ethics, moral values of the country, which brought the country to the place where it is, and the religious values substituted these values because they are more permanent when the ethic values were destroyed, then the religious values came to the forefront. And this is how perhaps the young people are moved with the ideas of sacrificing themselves for the sake of going in the eternal life. They will go to paradise and they burn up, they explode themselves up. And you wouldn't, of course, find this in places where the religious conviction is so deep-rooted in their heart. So there is a disparity between the insurgents or the ideas that move the insurgents on the one hand and the ideas that move the counter-insurgents. Counter-insurgents are soldiers from Bavaria or from Alabama, and of course they will not burn themselves up or they will not put their lives into difficulty as the insurgents do. This social problem are created by the conflict there, by the wars that preceded perhaps 9/11, and it made Afghanistan a harbor for that type of activities. I will come to that at a later point. The opium production has become a least or less dangerous economic activity since the other economic activities do not bring money, so people have directed their effort to that. Mr. Sertaç Aziz mentioned that in the Taliban's time, they controlled the drug trafficking better than ISAF is doing at present and the present government of Afghanistan is doing today. Perhaps we have to learn how do they manage an administration or a social factor which is called Taliban could do better than an organized state structure which is supported by the international community with that much possibilities. We have to learn from this. When we look at all these things, use of soft power comes to the forefront. Of course, today and perhaps even yesterday, many speakers refer to the importance of the soft power. Nobody denies that soft power is advisable and perhaps better suited to the conditions, and that we also agree on it. What we have to we should be speaking about is the degree of shift to the soft power rather than spending money for military missions. 2 or 3 sorties of a combat aircraft and dropping bomb somewhere is almost equal to the cost of constructing a school. So by letting the military activities continue, you not only you spend money in the wrong place, but also you destruct infrastructure and together with it, perhaps, moral values of the people. So the shift to the soft power was underlined by many speakers today. I don't know whether any survey is carried out to compare the comparative advantages of spending money here or there. Of course, we should not deny the importance of security. If there is no security, you cannot use soft power. For the soft power to be used, you need a minimum security environment, and this is what NATO says that they are trying to do. But it is NATO assessment and the assessment of people who are sitting around the NATO Council table, not the people of the country, which is much more important. So the decisions are being adopted on behalf of the Afghan people. In other words, we are telling the Afghan people, you cannot know what is good for you. We in Brussels, we are going to sit around the table, and we will decide on your behalf what is good for you. It's not exactly that way. I served in NATO, so NATO is full of very highly specialized experts, and they are taking very wise decisions. And my good friend, Mr. Sergio's boss, Mr. Hikmet Çetin, is my classmate, and he served as a foreign minister before me. So I talked to him, and he said that either we should succeed there at all costs, or we have to find an early exit strategy and not give the impression that NATO has lost the battle there. When I was working in NATO, a good Italian friend of mine used to tell me that since we did not make any war with the Russians, the only thing was to produce as many papers as possible so that we can pile them up in front of the Russian tanks if they invade Europe. So we passed this period of confrontation, but without making war. NATO is not battle-tested. Now NATO is being battle-tested in another area for which it was not designed. So this exit strategy should be finalized as soon as possible, not to give the impression that NATO tried to do something, but it failed. NATO is the only, perhaps, military structure in which the international community has invested their trust, and this trust should not come to nothing at the end. So this decision to shift to the soft power, with all the implications, should be taken as quickly as possible. The future of Afghanistan, of course, we should not look at this question only as putting down a rebellion or insurgency. The future of Afghanistan should also include how we should integrate it to the international community, like very important countries that play important roles as a member of international community. So we are too busy now with putting down the insurgency there, and perhaps do not look for the longer future. This is something we should be turning our attention as quickly as possible. I will say a few words on Turkey's cooperation with Afghanistan, which differs slightly from the cooperation which is mentioned in this forum. According to a UNDP report, Turkey is the very first country in the world to extend technical assistance to Afghanistan in 1920s, 28 exactly, to establish their army and to establish music school and other military schools, etc. And as Mr. Jalali was saying a few moments ago, Afghanistan welcomes with enthusiastically people whom they trust that they are there for their, to help them. At present, ISAF force is partly like this, but by one segment of the society, they are unbelievers who came to our country and who invaded, and we should get rid of them as soon as possible. There is one portion who thinks that way. So we should try to gain the heart of that segment, that international community is not there to do any harm to their country. And for this reason, Turkey's cooperation now continues at present with both with military power. On 2 occasions, Turkey served as a commander of the NATO forces there. And also, there's a very strong presence in construction of schools, running hospitals, and trying to construct infrastructure. So this experience of Turkey is very successful. Perhaps we may share our modest experience with other countries who want to do the same. I'm going to talk about one subject which has never mentioned, which is controversial, I know it, but we do not see, of course, nobody in this room will say that the Afghan problem is one way or another linked to the Palestinian problem. But many people, Taliban, for instance, says that there is a linkage like this. And the 9/11 attack actually was, in one way, a punishment of the West of the United States for supporting Israel in their fight against the Palestinians. So I will not say that if the Palestinian problem is solved, then Afghanistan problem will also be solved, or in the contrary, if it is not solved, the other cannot. I will not say this. It's not, the linkage is not that close. But if there are progress in the solution of the Palestinian problem, one may expect, of course, a softening in the question of solving the Afghan problem as well. Since on Afghanistan, the previous speakers were much better acquainted with the problem, I don't have much to add to what they said. I want to say a few words on Central Asia. Central Asia, as I said, has several definitions. Which countries constitute Central Asia? For the purpose of our meeting, I will take the definition which says that Central Asia is Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. Sometimes Kazakhs do not like to be counted among the Central Asian countries. I think there is a representative Kazakh federation here. Do you consider yourself as a Central Asian country?
Yes, sir.
You do. Sometimes some other Kazakhs do not agree with you, but there is no problem. What is the difference of Central Asia from Afghanistan for the purpose of our meeting? Central Asia is not harboring terror. Central Asia is perhaps the source of hydrocarbon reserves. For this reason, it's very important, but does not harbor terror, but it harbors instability. For instance, the latest development in Kyrgyzstan, to which I will come a few moments later, is such a situation. And I will talk about Central Asia from 3 different standpoints. One is the Russian Federation and Central Asia. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the Central Asian countries, of course, having declared their independence, they tried to keep as distant as possible from the Russian domination, and Russia wanted to keep them as close to their administration as possible. So Russia established the Commonwealth of Independent States, and this was a sort of modus vivendi between the Russians, who wanted to keep the members of the Commonwealth of Independent States as close to them as possible, and the newly independent countries not very distant from Russia, but not to fall under the domination of Russia. And at that time, the Russians perceived as some sort of competition between Turkey and the Central Asian countries, because you may know that with the exception of Tajikistan, all the remaining Central Asian countries have linguistic, ethnic, and cultural close relations with Turkey. These countries and Turkey belong to the same linguistic group, language group, which is called Turkic, the group of Turkic languages, which is a subgroup of Uralo-Altaic languages. Uralo-Altaic languages is composed of three subgroups. One is Finno-Ungarian, the other is Turkic group, the other are Korean and Japanese. So Turkic groups constitute the Central Asian countries, and Turkey has close relations with these countries. Russian Federation thought that Turkey is competing with them using this cultural affinity with them. But later on, we were able to convince Russia that we were not competing with them, but we were trying to cooperate and become partners in perhaps trying to develop these countries and help them in their economic development. Turkey and Central Asia, I already mentioned that the relations. When the Soviet Union has collapsed, Turkey was not prepared, and Turkey did not have means, infrastructure, knowledge how to deal with these countries of the same ethnic origin. But for this reason, the first Turkish small and medium-sized businessmen who went there for adventure purposes did not perform sufficiently good, and made perhaps a very bad impression of Turkish business circles there. Later on, nowadays, it is becoming, Turkey is trying to correct the mistakes of that time, but at present, Turkey is very much present in the economy of these countries, and also there are consultations, regular consultations at the political level, which brings together the heads of state once or twice a year. So the difficulties which is encountered at the lower level are overcome at the level of the at the summit, at the level of heads of states and governments. How about the relations among the Central Asian countries themselves? It varies according which country we are talking about. The most populated country, highest populated country, is Uzbekistan with 21 million inhabitants. The biggest country with the biggest area is Kazakhstan, and huge hydrocarbon reserves. The poorest and smallest country is Kyrgyzstan, and the most unstable, but with mineral reserves also. And the country which has minority communities in all of the Central Asian countries is Uzbekistan. for this reason, the other Central Asian countries look at Uzbekistan with certain misgivings whether they can destabilize our society that way. But it is not, so far, nothing came to the surface. And as far as I know, there is no border claim or difficulties stemming from the borders between these countries. So Central Asia is a calm country. In the Soviet time, the security was at the very high level. Now, I believe that security is no problem again there, internal security. Only one country has created a little problem. It is Kyrgyzstan. As you may know, the President of the Republic of Kyrgyzstan was overthrown, and he sought asylum, or he chose to live in Belarus, and he is replaced by Rosa Otunbayeva, who says now that in October next year the elections will be held, and she will stay at the head of the state until the end of 2011. The problem in Kyrgyzstan that concerns the big powers, United States and Russia, is the Manas air base, from where the military ammunition and soldiers were transferred for Afghanistan by the United States. There was a difficulty on the price of the rent to be paid to Kyrgyzstan, and I think it was agreed to 60 million, and now with 60 million, this rent continues. Kyrgyz do not refer, of course, to this air base as air base. They say transit point. So the United States is using it that way. To conclude, I would like to say that Afghanistan, Central Asia is no problem. For Afghanistan, the institute here, the Cultural Diplomacy Institute, is perhaps the best place to discuss the question, because when we look at closer at the Afghan problem, we see that the cultural difference is the most important. So far, we listened to many knowledgeable people this morning. The difficulties that we will encounter there is the difference from the culture. Something which may seem to all of us here very simple may not mean the same thing to them. When we give priority to schools, for instance, and if we mention the schooling for girls, then it is almost a sin. It will be regarded as an offense. How these outsiders teach us what we shall do with our daughters. They do not like this. So the priority, even if the civilian assistance comes to the agenda, we should set the priority from the area which will hurt their feeling less. And the involvement of the countries of the region, the countries who know very well the culture of Afghanistan, should not be missed. Their contribution will be very valuable, and with this perhaps we may achieve something. It may not be easy. It's a very important task, but if we fail, it will be the biggest failure of NATO, because so far NATO's capability has never been tested. This is the first battle testing of NATO, or involving a force which involves NATO. Thank you very much. I will